He's currently helping startups in an external role to incubate analytics and machine learning as well as artificial intelligence in house and also providing analytical solutions. He has a BTech from IIT Delhi and a postgraduate diploma in management from IIM Calcutta. He started his professional journey with Absolute Data right after his engineering, and he left after a year to join IIM Calcutta. After his PGDM, he has worked with EY and then back to Absolute Data, where he worked for close to 8 years. After a short stint with OYO, leading their pricing algorithm, Zubin now works as an independent consultant in the field of data analytics. So, in today's episode, let's get Zubin Saini's insights on all about data analytics. Hello. Hi there. Welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, The Guiding Voice for a Better Future. This podcast is to help professional students, IT employees, and entrepreneurs to shape their careers. If you have tuned into our podcast for the first time, you have missed a lot of stuff. But don't worry, all our previous episodes are available on your favorite podcast listening platforms and also on YouTube. If you haven't rated our podcast on Apple, please consider providing your rating and leave a positive review because every rating and review will motivate us to bring in more and more useful content to you. This is your host, Naveen Samala, and I have about 18 years of rich and diverse work experience in the IT industry. In every episode, we interact with industry experts or thought leaders or academicians or coaches across the globe to drive some insightful conversations that will help each one of you learn some amazing things. Also, we share an interesting trivia or a fun fact about the IT world or technology towards the end. So stay tuned till the end. You'll acquire more knowledge per every minute on TGV than any other podcast in this space. That's a bet from our side. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, we are going to discuss a topic all about data analytics. And we're pleased to have Zubin, part of TGV's journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Zubin, welcome to TGV.
Thank you so much, Naveen.
It's a pleasure to have you on TGV. So, Zubin, let's get started. I'll start with my very first question. We have briefly introduced about your career journey. Maybe you can highlight top 3 things that contributed to you becoming an independent consultant in the analytics space.
Sure. So let me start off from the beginning. I graduated from IIT Delhi back in 2005 with a BTech in electrical engineering. And I was one of those who were not, there are a lot of us guys who were not very interested in the core stream of engineering. So I always wanted to look at something else. And I was not very good at coding as well. But I was very interested in numbers and stuff. At that time, we did not know much about data analytics. There were a few companies who were doing that. We basically worked on surveys, analyzing survey data. Nothing quite as fancy as what we do today. But again, it was basically had a lot to do with numbers. And that was something that really caught my fancy. And I really enjoyed my 1 year there. It was a lot of hard work. It was a very small company. We had clients calling in at 5 in the morning, but it was very interesting. And I really loved it because it was what I wanted to do. And then after a year, I got through CAT. I went to IIM Calcutta. 2 years after that, I got an opportunity to work with Ernst & Young in Gurgaon. So I joined the business advisory team, BAS. There, I basically worked on a lot of strategy consultants at first, then shifted to operation consulting, visited coal mines in Korba, Chhattisgarh, went to a lot of plants, steel plants, saw how things actually work, which was a very enriching experience, but I missed numbers. So after 2.5 years, I decided to okay, I need a break from all this. And basically, I took off for a short sabbatical for around a year, in which basically I started writing something because that's another of my passions. So I thought, okay, let me follow that for a while. I ended up writing 2 half unfinished novels, which I haven't been able to publish even yet. But they are half written. I plan to do it sometime, but you know how life goes. So I haven't been able to do that yet. But then, Absolute Data, I had a chance to come back to Absolute Data and I said, why not? I joined there. For 8 years, I stayed there. It was a terrific journey. I built teams from scratch. When I finally left Absolute Data, we had a 60, 70 member team across not only in India, but also in the US, working on different analytics projects. And then basically I got a chance. I thought, okay, we've done all this. Let's see how the startup space is looking. So I joined OYO, heading the pricing algorithm there for India. It was a very interesting journey there also, but it wasn't quite the same fun what I had absoluted, and I said, okay, yeah, like I was missing something. So I thought, okay, yeah, let me see something else. And this is something I really love. I like help companies start from scratch. So that's my journey so far. I think the three things that contributed the most to it. Number one has been like, I think I've been lucky to work in a career which has also been my passion in the sense that I'm really like numbers. And basically this is data is all about numbers. So even though now the entire field is changing, and in the beginning I said I did not like coding and so which I have to learn, but it's still something that I'm very quite passionate about because you're actually looking at numbers. And so that's something that's really helped me because I mean, you have these troughs in your career, you have these crests. So I've been able to sustain through that ups and downs because I was passionate about what I was doing. So that was thing is number one. Number two, and which is something that many people I think miss, is the roles of team and the people around you. I think that's very important in terms of I've been very lucky to have good bosses and good peers and good juniors. And in fact, in my 8 years at Absolute Data, I had a fantastic team that worked under me. And I didn't really have to work hard because they were a great team who were doing everything. And I just could just chill and basically, and they were ready to do that because it was like a two-way relationship. They knew I had their back and they knew that for me, I'll have their back, and they were happy doing that. It was like, so I didn't have to work very hard, but it was a very good kind of relation. And I think that's really helped me in terms of doing what I wanted to do. So that's number two. And number three, I think, is in terms of it's luck also in a sense. Well, that is a very easy thing to say, but again, stated, I was key that I was part of this data science when I became a part of it, because when I joined, it was a very small, very fledgling industry, and now everyone's talking about it. I have juniors now, who, let's say, who are on a package of X right now. They want to change a company, they get X into 25%. And at the same time, another company they're paying them X into 1.5. And then the next hike, they actually end up in a place which is 2X, 2.5X. And this is happening across the board. And this is because suddenly data science has found much traction. So in that sense, I was really lucky to be there at the starting and being part of that journey and seeing and struggling for it, because there have been cases where clients have just said, what are you doing? And why do you want my data? Why do you want to? But now the acceptance that's come, I was lucky to be one of the first few people to actually be a part of that journey. So that I think those are the most important things that have helped shape my career into what it is.
That's a great summary, Zubin. I think you had a very enriching career in terms of building the teams from scratch and growing them up to 70 across the globe, which is not a small thing. And you touched upon the important aspect of data science and the openness of the clients to provide data. In fact, now that everybody realizes how to leverage or harness the data power, right? So I think definitely it's going to help out whoever is aspiring to get into data science field. And thank you for sharing your summary. Now let me move on to my next question out of this conversation. We always come across these two terms like data analytics and data science. So is there any difference, or are they both the same?
For most practical purposes and the way you hear it, they are more or less the same. They're basically synonyms of each other. If I was to delve deeper technically in data analytics, is of course an older term. Earlier it was only data analytics. Data science is a newer term. In between, you might have heard of this term called big data, which was this huge term that came up. No one knew what it was, but everyone was talking about it, and everyone was like, yeah, wow, this is the thing that will basically change the world. And basically everyone was talking about that. Didn't find that much traction. Now the new thing that you hear is AI ML. Everyone's an AI ML expert. Everyone's working into artificial intelligence, everyone machine learning. To be very fair and to be very honest, these are basically like tools of the data science industry to actually make them sexy in a way that basically people talk about them. AI is something that artificial intelligence you hear and you're like, wow, this is amazing. Data analytics, you understand the difference, right? In terms of how things work. And basically, so from that perspective, data science is, of course, a batch. If you were to offer a person a role of a data analyst vis-a-vis a data scientist, he'll jump up to be a data scientist as compared to be a data analyst. So it's a better term, it's a sexier term. Everyone will want to do that because yes. So that's one. But I think jokes apart, I think bigger difference is data analytics is a slightly broader term. In the sense, when you talk about data analytics, it can include things, it can include getting data from one place to another. Data science is more hardcore data. When I say analysis of data is you're building models, where exactly that data, what exactly is that data doing, and how how is it basically if you're building predictive models, for example, that's data science, that's hardcore data science. So a lot of data analytics role that you see, for example, will basically be purely reporting role. Now, I'm not saying there's anything kind of like wrong with that, but those are not exactly when you talk to people, those are not very aspirational roles, even though that is probably the bread and butter of what is driving data, right? Because the people want reports of how the marketing campaigns are going, how the business itself is doing. So that is probably the core of data analytics right now. But data is slightly kind of like more high end, if that's the right word, in terms of using that data to do something worthwhile, and actually to like combine that data and using it to like elevate that into something which can be usable like in a predictive model, or to actually like kind of help understand what are the kind of things that people are going for, and to understand those trends in the industry. Those are basically, that is the data science. So that is the difference between the two. Data analytics is more encompassing, is a smaller but a wider set. And also in terms of like comparing it to AI ML, when you hear about a lot of people who say AI, artificial intelligence, machine learning to a certain extent, yes, there is a lot of machine learning that's happening. Artificial intelligence, I use the term abused, because a lot of things that you hear a lot of artificial intelligence, that's not artificial, that's just basically putting data and building a model. But so yeah, data science is very closer to machine learning per se. Data science is a much broader term which can be anything. And again, if a person had a choice of going for a data analytics versus data science, I think data science is a better term in order to like get people attracted to the industry first.
Very insightful, Zubin. Data science is something far closer to the AI and ML, and whereas data analytics is more on the reporting side and coming up with some analytics which will help the businesses make better decisions. Great.
Exactly.
So thank you for sharing that summary. Now let's talk more about data analytics. So how can this data analytics help the businesses?
Let's take the example of a regular shopkeeper, right? A general person in your neighborhood. Even he has some data. He knows how many people come to his store every day. He knows basically what is the kind of things that people buy. Use that data in order to make better decisions. For example, a very simple decision which is what all should I, for example, in terms of, okay, yeah, I have this inventory today. This much got sold today. What should I buy tomorrow, for example? And what should I tell my retailers to send to me, for example? He's basing that decision based on data that he has collected and seen. So for him, it's very experiential. But actually what he's doing is he's actually using data that he has seen over past a lot of time to actually come up with that mass. So that's a very simple kind of like things where data can help even smaller shopkeepers and everyone in terms of telling them, okay, yeah, this is what you need to buy. So inventory store management, for example. Then simple reporting. So any business that you see, especially today, which is basically a lot of online based business, of it is based on, okay, how many people are basically, how are people engaging on a website? Which pages are people visiting? Which people are kind of analysis that you can do, which is on the report side, right? Actually go up another level and see what your different kind of like departments behaving in terms of, okay, yeah, this was your budget and this is what you have achieved. And you want to see where has that shortfall, or if you have over exceeded. It's basic data, reporting it, getting it in the right place is what acts. So right now, the good thing is everyone understands the importance of that. To be very honest, data was there from the beginning and people are using it. Earlier, it was in the form of Excel sheets, right? So you had a guy who was basically, whose only job was to build one Excel sheet in that entire month because it was very complex Excel. So he would do that, he would have that. However, what happens is you have these automated kind of like queries that run on SQL data that you have, which can complete Excel that you're getting in. And you can have that report in 30 minutes on your desk on to whoever you want to send it to, a CEO, you want to send it to a marketing manager, you have all. So that is the kind of changes that data science is making into this world, because it's making it a lot more easier for people to process data and to understand what's happening. So this is only from a reporting angle, what is exactly happening from a report. Then we move on further. Now, then a market manager wants to understand, okay, I've done like 100 things. I've shown my ads on TV, I've shown ads on radio, I'm doing a lot of Facebook marketing. What is it that is actually influencing my sales? So for that, we have something called a market mix modeling experience, which is basically where we try to understand what is it that is actually driving sales based on different marketing campaigns that are done. So this is how we help companies and able to tell them that the return on investment that you're getting from different activities are this much, and then basically helping them optimize their spend. So let's say if a marketing manager says, boss, I only am able to generate 30 crore worth of sales. Then we tell them, okay, boss, this is how you've spent over the past 2 or 3 years. This is the results that you get. And we think make better decisions. Word that you might have started seeing around is decision engineering, which is basically like helping decisions to engineer better decisions using data. So this is one. Then on the customer side, so for example, you have a lot of customer, like especially in the world of e-commerce, you get a lot of these emails which tell you, okay, yeah, buy this, buy this. So that is driven by something called as CRM models, which run on top of customer data and trying to see what you've bought in the past and what are you seeing. What are the kind of things that you kind of visit, or the kind of things that you actually like when you come to a website? What are the kind of pages that you see? It takes info from that, and then based on that, it actually recommends what should be the kind of campaign that should be sent me. For example, if you see, and this is a very common example nowadays, suppose you're talking to a friend on WhatsApp about, let's say, going somewhere, that let's plan a trip to, let's say, Goa, right? And the next day you see on Facebook, you'll have these on the right, you'll have these travel to those kind of, that's all data. It's not ethical in many ways per se, but that's what happens in the sense that this is what data analytics and data science enables you to do in terms of giving companies that edge, that competitive edge over their customers in basically driving new results and getting it on forward. Just to give you an example, right? There's this company called Under Armour in the US. It was a very small, it's a clothing apparel, which is now all across. But when it started, it was a very small company, and the entire sports clothing apparel was basically dominated by Nike, Reebok, and Adidas. Those were the big three, and basically no one was ever close to them. The only thing Under Armour did differently was they used data. And they used data in the right way. They did models. They basically attracted the right kind of customers, took out the right schemes for them. And based on that, they were able to easily dislodge Adidas to number 2, and now they are challenging Nike for number 1 in the US. Just based on, the only difference was they use data. And because a lot of these older firms, because they have a lot of legacy things, they take time to actually data is something that we can use, because there were a lot of marketing, because a lot of people kind of, when you go up to them and tell them something, they think at a risk to my company, what to do, what am I doing? But data is not a threat. Data is like help you make better decisions, and which can help you basically do your job better. And the past 8 at Absolute Data, this was the fight that we had with our clients. So generally the project was mandated by someone senior, and we had to go and tell someone junior that this is how you're supposed to, like, these are better decisions. And there was a lot of resistance from them to accept that results, because it was kind of like you're stepping into our territory. What do you know? Blah, 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 which is partially true, but which is also not what the data shows us. And basically, that's why I like this, because everything will be very, very data backed. It's fact. It's not like, and when I say talk about management consulting, a lot of it, management consulting is a lot, this is what they did, that's why you should do. This is actually based on numbers, that no, you have done this, hence you need to do this, and basically tell them. And that's what I really like about this job, and is basically helping companies in order to use that data and make better decisions. And we companies that have like done brilliantly well based on the recommendations that we've made. And I think it's the power of data is going to grow even further in the future, because it's going to grow exponentially even more.
I loved your statement. Like, nobody will believe you until you prove it through data. And also the social media examples that you mentioned, those are also very useful. Now let's talk a little bit about the technologies in the data analytics space. What kind of technologies do we have, and where one can start from?
So again, there's a vastly changing space. So when I started back in 2005, right? When I was mainly working on marketing research, which uses SPSS, which is one of those initial statistical formulations that came out. At that same time, we started working on SAS, which was a brilliant language, which basically like took over. So even now, a lot of financial companies use SAS because that was the core, and a lot of those systems have been built on that. So a lot of data, like when data analytics started becoming good, was when SAS was there, and basically a lot of these legacy systems are still based on SAS, and SAS is still a very important skill. But somewhere around 2011, 2012, 2013, there was this huge wave of new languages that started coming out, which were open source. And basically the two languages that really like took over were R and Python. So these are two hardcore coding languages which are basically built for statistical packages. Python has a lot more applications as well. R is mainly just for statistical packages. And these are two of the more powerful languages in terms of what people use nowadays to basically get this data started and how to basically build models and basically get this data. So that's on the modeling side. So these are probably the three languages. And the fourth language that just started out, which is now making waves, is something called Julia. So these are probably the four biggest languages from a modeling perspective that are dominating the industry right now. SAS, R, Python. Python is probably number one right now. R is number two. And then probably Julia is just making waves, and SAS used to be a big time number one. Everything earlier was SAS. If you didn't know SAS, you did not have a future in data science. It was like that. But now, like in my team of when I left Absolute Data, for example, in a team of 70 people, I had 5 people who knew SAS because it was such an outdated. It had suddenly become so outdated. That is how it turned out. So that's on the modeling side of it. Then there are technologies which can help you visualize things better. So think of it as making graphs, getting reports, right? So from that perspective, there are tools like Tableau, which is a very powerful tool. There's Alteryx, which is a combination of, you can do modeling also there. It's also a visualization tool. There's Microsoft.NET, another powerful tool. There's Power BI, there's ClickView. So a lot of these tools which help you, basically, if you have data, it helps you visualize that data in any way you like. So it will help you like get the data in a particular space. So if, for example, a marketing manager wants to see, okay, what are my different regions done? How are my different sales done? And basically wants to see it in a fancy chart. You can build whatever fancy chart you want for him. Those tools, it's like a very, very fast, very, very good version of Excel or Excel VBA, for example, which helps you basically build those charts in the Excel VBA also is still a very powerful tool right now because you can build charts. If people want to get the data in Excel, which is still a very popularly used medium, you build it through VBA, you basically show those charts. That's also very powerful. That's the technology on the visualization. And the third thing is the data handling front, which is basically tools like you have SQL, which is like the bread and butter of this industry in terms of getting everything in SQL, getting data there, getting data out from there, running basically different skills. That's one. Now, because the data that we have is so huge, we also have NoSQL database. So we have Hadoop, for example, which is basically a multi-server kind of like server, which basically kind of like build huge data sets there because it then splits up data into different servers. So Hadoop is a big kind of like is a big thing in demand right now. And it's a skill set that's not right out there. So a lot of people want that skill set because it's something very new. And the more data you collect, SQL becomes unable to handle it after a certain point. And so a lot of people are moving into these non-SQL databases. So Hadoop is like number one. And from a data processing side, that's what you want to do. That is, Hadoop is one which is coming out in a big way. But otherwise than SQL is like still the bread and butter of things. So those are the three different kind of technologies and the different kind of tools that are used in the industry.
Wow, that's a wonderful summary. So if you start with the data modeling, probably SAS, R, Python, and Julia programming languages will come handy. And talking about the visualization, you have Tableau, Power BI, ClickView, Alteryx, and also Excel VBA. And with regard to data handling, it's more about SQL or NoSQL database. And in case if the volume is too huge, then we can go for Hadoop. Thank you. That was a great summary.
Yeah.
So, Subin, now can we talk a bit about the evolution of the data analytics and what kind of trends that we are seeing in this space so that somebody can keep themselves up to date?
Sure. It's a vastly changing industry. I've seen like things like I just said, I've seen things going from, so we were using SAS earlier. We moved from SAS to R. By the time we moved to R, Python had come up. Then some people decided to move to Python. Now we are hearing about Julia. It's basically an industry that's changing massively. And also the kind of things that you're doing are also changing massively. Now you can do things like using data science, you can do things like, okay, I want to basically do a face recognition system, for example. That's very easy using Python nowadays. So everyone who knows Python, you can just do a face recognition system, have train it with data. So you'll have your face, my face. You'll have like people, 30,000 people, and then if you show them a picture of the same person, the model will be able to tell you, oh yeah, that's great. So a lot of data science is actually moving towards that, in terms of a lot of people are now doing things which weren't possible earlier. And I'll just give you an example. So this company, it was actually a rival company of Absolute, so I won't really name it, but what they're doing right now is basically they have a product. So what they've done is it's a very elegant system. What they've done is they basically put in like kind of different kind of pictures of how do different diseases look like, and how do person of different diseases look like, and how do the reports look like. They have a database based of that. And a doctor can do when a client comes to him and shows his report is, and basically like just input his report there, and the tool will tell you what is exactly the kind of symptoms that they're showing. Not exactly the symptoms. Looking at the symptoms, they can then tell you these are the kind of disease that person might have. A list of those. That's a very cool thing, right? In terms of this was something that was not possible even 5 years ago. So that's something that is really changing the way data analytics is now helping people. So a lot of data science now is from helping companies is now changing into basically building more tools which help mankind in a way, in terms of building something which is more kind of like a better system for people, and a better system which helps people understand what exactly is happening out there and making their lives better. So that's one major change that's happening in the industry. The other thing is, of course, in terms of when you combine everything together, I think this is a industry that where you have to upgrade yourself continuously, because a lot of these languages are open source, right? There are people working on these languages across the world, and there are a lot of new packages that are coming out, and things are becoming outdated like every second. So you're writing a code earlier and you don't know a package that's coming in, that it might take you like 5,000 lines of code to come in, and a new person might come in and write that in 50 lines. And it's not that you're a bad programmer, it's just need to update yourself so fast and so quickly, because otherwise you will be outdated in a while. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge in terms of being in this space. Is basically you always need to catch up on what's happening, because there's a lot of new things that are happening. And with the likes of like Google, Facebook, Apple, these are the kind of companies that are leading the way here in terms of, so because these guys have the most amount of data, and these guys are basically the pioneers, and basically because they have the most amount of data, they're the ones who are doing something. So what I talked about Hadoop, for example, so they have like, you have two languages, Hive and Pig. So one was developed in Facebook, one was developed in Yahoo, because those were the two, like kind of like when they started off, those were the two languages which work on Hadoop, for example. And these are the kind of things that you need to actually come up and pick up on, because this is a very, very changing and very, very dynamic. And it's changed, like I said in the beginning, earlier, because I loved numbers, it was a very cool thing. You didn't have to code much. You just had to look at Excel and basically be happy about life, basically work a bit on SAS, which was okay. Now it's a completely different. You have to like know languages, code your eggs off, and be very quick on what's happening in the industry, because this is changing like anything. So that's what's happening.
I love the example in the healthcare industry, especially for the cancer patients and those with the heart ailments and all. These reports can really come handy, and especially detecting some early stage cancer will save the life of the humans, and definitely it is going to help the healthcare community. And in fact, even in the shopping experience, it helps the companies promote the products that are prone to be bought by the customers very well based on the analytics and all. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Zubin. Now let's talk about the career opportunities in this space. What are the various roles that are available, and how should someone approach?
Sure. Right now, I think this might be biased, but I think this is the hottest industry, at least in now. The way I'm seeing it, it's like everyone's going gung ho. Everyone wants people, and there's a paucity of good quality people, because there are a lot of startups that are opening up, and a lot of these every startup needs a data guy, and they're not getting enough people. So it's definitely a very good industry startup and to be a part of, right? Number one, I think, so we from scratch. Okay. So the first thing, of course, is getting that data in one place. Those are roles which are called as data engineers. So what these people do, they build something called data lakes. They build these databases, get all data together, try to see exactly how these are very code specific jobs. Basically, like you need to understand. So even if you want to work, let's say on Amazon cloud, Amazon databases, warehouses, services, for example, those kind of skills, as well as if you want to build something on your own or in your own system, you can do that as well. So that is the first kind of role, which is basically a data engineering kind of. That's number one. The second role that we talked about is basically roles which have to do more with visualization. So you've got the data in place. Now, however, what do you do with that data? So the first roles that you do is basically you get all that data, you basically build reports out of them and you visualize it and you show it to management in terms of in the way that they can understand. So that's number two in terms of writing those codes which transform that data into something meaningful, into either visual charts, into basically like reports which everyone can understand and which is very easy to assimilate. That's number two. Number three, then coming up is when you have these reports, now they want to know, okay, what should I do with them? So then the next thing that comes in is some sort of predictive modeling or some sort of like analysis on those reports. So basically you become a data modeler or a data scientist, basically in which you build models, in which you basically use modeling techniques of different kinds, and then basically use that in order to actually assimilate things going forward. And one thing that I probably forgot to mention in the previous question was one more changing thing is even the kind of techniques we're using for modeling are changing quickly. So basically earlier, if some of our learners have some idea of data analysis, there were some very simple techniques called as linear regression, logistic regression. That is what people used to do and everyone was very happy about it. Now that is like 1960s already. That was now we have techniques like neural networks, random forests. A random forest outdated, but it was simple neural network, now they're convoluted neural networks. And it just keeps on getting harder and harder. So that is the data modeling. So basically, like the data modeling role will basically encompass you to actually like learn new kind of modeling techniques and basically build those models based on what the client requirement is. So that's number three. Number four then is an AI data science AI role, which is AI ML role. I'm calling it the ML AI role, which is basically building things like these products in terms of the health product I just talked. These products, which are basically like, which involve usage of a lot of data, but which combines a lot of other elements in order for normal people to use it. So that is basically a combination of all these. And the fifth role, I think, which is probably the most lacking in all of this, which is a simpler role, but where is a mixture of these. When I say a mixture of these is you need people who understand data and who can explain it to business leaders, because that's one skill that, so people are very good at coding. People are very good at coding. People are very good at visualizing. People are very good at building everything. But what does that mean? So there has to be a person who has to be a bridge, who's like a bridge between the engineers and the marketing guys, right? That is a very, very important role, which is currently missing across the pool. So people are looking for such people who can actually like explain what they're doing and basically help companies take the right decision. Because even if you do everything, you still need someone to help marketers understand, okay, yeah, this is a lot of data. What do I do with it? So you have a person who's there to explain them, okay, this is what this means, this is what, and that's a skill that's currently quite lacking. And that's something that probably needs to be kind of built upon. And basically like that is one skill that people can. So people who are coming in from a business background who want to pick up a bit of data analytics skills, I think this is a great time for them to pick up that and then basically approach this.
This seems to be a handful of roles, and depending on the interest, like you can be on the data processing side or generating the reports or maybe building some algorithms and all. So quite fascinating, and definitely a lot of opportunities out there in case if somebody wants to venture into. So Zubin, this conversation has been fantastic, but let's add some spice to the conversation. Maybe I'll ask you a few interesting rapid fire questions. Are you ready?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So you can be very crisp in answering these, maybe roughly 2 to 3 words or maximum one phrase. If you're okay, let me shoot my first bullet out of the rapid fire. What would you do if you won a $1 billion lottery?
I'll probably buy a lot of comic books. I love comic books and actually books. I'll probably buy a lot of books, and then probably I'll just invest in different companies and not do anything and just like help them like make some money for me. Yeah.
Quite interesting. Now you spoke about the comic characters. Let me shift gears and ask about who is your favorite superhero character?
I would say I really loved He-Man as a kid because he used to. That was probably one of the first. But I like Superman. I like Batman also, and nothing favorite as such. But in terms of everything, I would say He-Man is probably still because it's childhood love. So
Interesting. Let me move on to my next question. What is hidden talent that no one knows about you, Zubin?
I think I can make a game of everything. So basically, so my brother was in a boarding school. I was home and I had a very isolated house. So sometimes I didn't have many friends to play around with. So I just used to go around, basically just make games out of it. I used to fill up like paper, my notebooks by just inventing some new games and basically so I think that's one hidden talent.
It's quite enchanting, actually. I'm really curious what kind of games that you have created so far. Wonderful.
Yeah, sure.
Let me move on to my next question. So, what has been a question on your mind for which you never got an answer for, Zubin?
This is rather philosophical. It's about what happens when we die. There's something that's always like kind of riddled me, and I've thought about it, and I don't know.
I agree. It's a question to many of us. All right. So, with that, let me move on to the last question for the rapid fire. What is one message that you would like to give to your own younger version, Zubin?
I made some mistakes in my career. Not just career, like even while studying, I've like not really paid attention and I've like not made the best career move. But I think that's part of the experience, right? So I'll just ask him to probably enjoy a bit more and basically like not enjoy a bit more. I think I've enjoyed as much as we could. But yeah, life will be good. I think that's probably the most important. Not worry too much.
Wish we could predict something in the past itself, then things would have been a little different. All right, that was a fantastic rapid fire. With that, let me flip back to the mainstream and ask you one last question for this conversation today. What will be your one piece of advice to those aspiring to make big in their careers?
Three things are going to be very important. One is be passionate about what we do. I think that's very important. Like, don't go into it just because everyone's going into it. Just be passionate about it. Just if you only go into it if you like it. Otherwise, I've seen a lot of people who do not like it and who've gone on to do something else. So don't do that. Number two is learn as much from a technical standpoint as you can about business. So a lot of things that I see with youngsters today is they want to learn a lot about technology without understanding the applications of it. And that's probably one of the biggest things that you can probably go wrong with, especially when you link to data science, because it has to have an end product, which is related to business and which is related to how it's going to be applied. So I think that's important. And the third thing is, and this is a general, not just data sciences, there'll be ups and downs across. You'll have bad managers, you'll have days that are not good. Just keep your heads up because it always gets better. I think that is probably important for people to learn. And I think and that is more from a general point, when you basically work in teams, be more empathetic towards one another. I think that's very important.
Amazing tips, Subin. Talking about the second point that you mentioned, learn about the business as passionately as you're learning technology, because I would like to add my 2 cents here. As long as we are able to relate to how our work is impacting the business, then we'll be able to articulate well and we'll be able to project our candidature better even when you are appearing for interviews. At the same time, it will also give you a sense of accomplishment, saying that, hey, my work is impacting the revenue or the bottom line. Thanks for bringing that up.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's
wonderful. So, Zubin, thank you so much for joining us today. It was a great topic
Thanks
to
for
discuss.
having me. It was good fun. It was great fun. Thanks a lot.
All right. It was a pleasure hosting you, Zubin. And before we move into the trivia segment, here is a request to all the audience. If you have loved this episode and found it useful, please share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who can benefit from this show. The more you share, the wider we reach, and we will get closer to our mission of reaching millions across the globe. Thank you so much in advance. With that, let me move on to the trivia segment of today's episode. And folks, in one of the past episodes, we have asked about what was the first computer virus that was released in the internet. And most of you have guessed it. We spoke about Creeper, which was released on the ARPANET as a harmless experiment. However, there is a different virus which was released in the wild for the first time. And do you know what was it? I know you're thinking, but let me tell you the answer. It is Brain. Brain is a program that was created in 1986 by the Farooq Alvi brothers of Pakistan, and it was a method to deter the copying of medical software that they have written. In fact, it targeted IBM PCs and would replace a floppy disk boot sector with a copy of the virus and flag the real boot sector as bad, which means it will deny access to that particular file system. Interesting, isn't it? Thank you so much for listening. There is more in store, folks. Stay tuned. Take care. Be safe. Until next time, bye-bye. And we are signing off for today. See you all in the next episode with another wonderful guest.